Hey everybody, back for another video. I'm recording this on Easter Sunday, so happy Easter. So I did not make it to church this morning, but I did watch a sermon online, and I wanted to talk about some of my thoughts about said sermon. Now it's interesting that this church actually doesn't follow the liturgical calendar, so the sermon was not actually about Easter. It was just a regular sermon about biblical stuff. And the main message of it was that uh, chasing material things is not going to satisfy us, that only way to find contentment is in the Lord. And, he talked about passages like the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And, I think it's a good message. Certainly, we should find our contentment in the Lord. That's something I struggle to do a lot, admittedly, but it's a good message. I agree with it. And, but one thing that kind of inspired me to make this response to it is that the pastor was listing off different things. He was saying, like, people like, oh, if I just have a better job, I'll be happy. Oh, if I just have more money, I'll be happy. Oh, if I just have a nicer car, I'll be happy. If I just have a bigger house, I'll be happy. And I'm thinking, there's one thing he kind of conspicuously didn't mention there, and that was if I had a wife, I'd be happy. And if you're a woman, if I had a husband, I'll be happy. The fact is, there's a lot more single people today who, the thing that they feel like they're missing in their life is not a nicer car or a house or money. It's love. And it's funny because it made me realize that I think the reason he didn't mention those things is because he knew it would have opened up a whole new can of worms that he didn't want to get into. Now, it's like by framing it in terms of just material possessions and wealth, then it's easier to talk about that because, there's plenty of passages in the Bible that talk about how, wealth won't satisfy you. It's more important to be right with God. But it's like he preaches within this paradigm of like, well, of course, everybody, has already found a spouse and maybe has a family and all that. And just for record, this is a pastor who I've met personally who preached the sermon, and he's about the same age as me, and he's married. And I think he and his wife met in college, so they've been married for a long time. But for a guy like me who never got married, who never found a wife, who never had any success romantically, you feel left out. And I guess it just got me thinking how, I know I'm not the first person to talk about this, but the churches today really aren't aware of what singles are dealing with, what the situation is like out there, how a lot of people just feel unfulfilled not because they don't have the fancy car or the fancy house or whatever, but because they don't even have someone who loves them. And that's a gap that's harder to fill with anything. It's like, I don't need a lot. I don't want a lot. Like, I've never in my life actually felt like I was ever going to be rich. I've never had a sense that I would be able to achieve, high status or wealth or anything. That was never important to me. A car, sure. I actually need a new car right now because the one I have is getting kind of old. And, I want a car that's dependable, that can serve my needs, but I don't need it to be fancy. I don't need a car that's a status symbol to show off. I just want something that does its job and does it dependably. That's literally all I want from a car. A house, yes, I would like to have my own house. And, I just want a house that I can afford, a house that's comfortable to live in, a house that's in an area where I enjoy living. That's good enough for me. It doesn't need to be a mansion. It doesn't need to have, all these crazy features. It just needs to be something I can live in comfortably. Money, yeah, I want enough money to provide for me. In a job, sure, I want a job that I can stand doing and that will provide enough money for me. But to me, jobs aren't fulfilling. Jobs are just a means to an end. So, yeah, I don't want a lot. I mean, I'm not greedy for material wealth. I really never have been when I think about it. Sure, it'd be nice to never have to worry about money, but that's not because I enjoy money for its own sake. I see these billionaires, whoever, who are just trying to make more money. It's like, well, whatever. I'm not in that league, and I'm not ever going to be, and I don't want that life anyway, because, the spiritual things are more important to me than simply material things. But yeah, I guess I'm just saying how this sermon just ended up being another reminder that, singles are kind of left out of a lot of the discourse in the church, that we're not really addressed. We're just kind of ignored because people don't understand that there's a lot of us out there and we're hurting, but the churches, I don't think, really know how to help us. Maybe they should be trying to. I actually did read in a blog post a while back where the guy said that he thinks pastors should be trying to do more to help young people get together and form, families and stuff, which is good, but maybe that's hard to do in this day and age when a lot of people don't really have a strong church community or a strong church family anymore. But I don't know. I think that maybe it's just something to think about. I'm not a pastor. I don't think I'm cut out to be a pastor. And the guys who do become pastors are usually guys who have their life together pretty well, who are smart, who are articulate, who know how to have that sort of air about them of just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm in charge here. They have that authoritative, intelligent way about them. So guys like that usually don't have problems with women. And it's like, they can't relate to people who don't have those things and who kind of missed out on a lot of the things they take for granted. So, yeah, I guess I don't know what else to say. Just if you're watching this and you happen to be a pastor, just something to think about, that, the issue of singles who haven't found a husband or wife, people who are hurting, people who are having trouble in the dating market, people who don't, who have been sort of priced out of any sort of chance at mating. I mean, by women or by society or by the fact that the government subsidizes people to be single a lot of the time. The fact that people have become so selfish that cooperation is more difficult than it used to be. I mean, I think pastors should be really addressing those, because if you really want to reach the world, you're going to have to address this at some point and not ignore it. And again, I'm not saying that the message of, material wealth isn't fulfilling, that only Christ can ultimately fulfill us. I'm not saying that's a bad message. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, just the way the sermon was preached brought to mind this other issue, which I think churches should be addressing more and should be realizing more. And, maybe it's time to start looking for a way for the churches to address it. So anyway, talk to you later.